Morning, everyone. How are you doing? Happy half term to those of you in the East Midlands. I think it varies for a lot of us at the moment. I think some of you are next week. Holly's here today to talk about everything to do with PPC automation and AI and harnessing its powers. And Holly is so talented. You're in really good hands. Yes, we're getting lots of mornings in. Hello, everyone. If you can just write in the chat that you can hear okay, because we can sort out any, technical issues before we get going, really. Yeah, it sounds like everyone can hear. I think we've got a lot of regulars in today. Usually, like, if you get a person for the first time, you can't always hear. Hi, Chief I. Hi, Mark. Good to see you here. Hi, Raj. So we're just going to run through a poll to begin with. We'll follow the standard setup like we do for webinars as normal. So we'll be presenting to you and, everything will come, you'll get the catch-up video and we'll give you handouts and everything else. So let's start the poll just to get some, indication of what you all know. So you ready? Okay. So are you using automation and AI in your PPC? No, haven't and don't want to. No, want to try but unsure. Have used it a little but skeptical. Yes, use it all the time. And the latter one is unsure. It's quite a specific one today, but it'd be good to know. Oh, wow. Some quick fire round kind of answers there, should I say. So we've got 25% saying no, haven't, don't want to. And then 75% saying no, want to try but unsure. 13% saying have used it, but I'm a little bit skeptical. And 4% saying unsure. And basically, there's no one in the audience using it all the time. So this is going to be really interesting. Right. So just so you're aware, more people have just joined us, the recording will be available at the end. It will be sent out. I'll ensure that you can access the handouts. I'll pin them to the chat. I'll be sorting Holly out support-wise. Yeah, that didn't sound right then. But I knew it. And can't wait for this one. Do you want to get going then, Holes?
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so morning everybody. Hope everybody's well this morning. So my talk, as Kate mentions, all about automation and AI in PPC. Hopefully easing those that haven't used it before into it a little bit. There's certain, techniques that are particularly beneficial. They can help create efficiencies, and it's not all about giving, Google or Microsoft or whichever platform it may be the power. Some of it is there purely for kind of your benefit. So there's things that you can do that still give you all of the control. It's still all in your kind of hands, but it just kind of helps you to make efficiencies. And it doesn't always have to be, like I say, to give over control. And some things you might be doing already that actually fall into automation that you just don't kind of realise. So let's get into it. So just a bit of background on myself. So I'm Holly. So I head up the paid media department at Anika. So I've been with Anika 8 and a little bit years now. Started off purely in PPC, so did all kind of the paid search, Google, Bing, all that kind of stuff. And then over time, I've kind of branched out into kind of wider paid media, so covering paid social and kind of affiliates and Amazon ads and stuff like that as well. So quite broad knowledge across paid media, but my specialism does lie within the paid search side of things. Anika, as a business, we've been around. We got established by our founder and CEO, Anne, back in 2007. So we're in our 16th year now. We've got a staff of 26, and we've got kind of big plans for growth over the next few years as we move forward. Our team, just a quick kind of overview. We've got our commercial and strategy team where kind of I sit, and then we've got a technical and support team as well. So that's all through the likes of kind of the technical staff, but also we've got the likes of kind of Lucy and Gurpreet, who kind of helps out with these webinars as well. So big shout out to our Anika team. Within Anika, we focus across both strategy and delivery. Services cover kind of analytics through paid media, through training, and everything else kind of in between. And we do focus across lead generation and e-commerce as well. We've got a great range of clients. Really proud to be working with kind of all of our clients, no matter whether they're national, local, international. We've got loads of great clients, and we're really proud of kind of the work that we do for them. And we've got a couple of awards. Well, I say a couple. We've got 7 awards nominations out at the moment. So we're keeping our fingers crossed for the outcome on those. But enough about Annika. Let's crack on to the talk of why kind of you're all here today. So to get us started, just looking at a little bit of kind of what is automation. So automation is actually, it's all about doing things more efficiently. So it's not about giving over control. It's nothing new. It's been around in many industries, and many industries have been revolutionized by automation. Whether that's, the robots coming in and doing manual labor jobs like building cars, whether it's ATMs dispensing cash and then communicating this back to the bank. Automation is all around us, and we don't shy away from it in our kind of everyday lives. We embrace it without kind of giving it a second thought, whether it's the moment we wake up. We have our heating schedules automated. We have payment schedules automated through direct debits. The list literally goes on. And then automation then starts to pair with artificial intelligence or AI. And this powers things like finding us new shows to watch on the likes of Netflix. So it's all around us. It's in our everyday lives, and everybody will be touched by kind of automation and AI in some way each and every day. So it's nothing to be afraid of. And it is coming, or it is here in the world of PPC, and it's becoming ever more kind of present. So the difference between kind of automation and AI, they work hand in hand, but they are quite different. So automation has a lot of human input, or it requires human input. So it's all about a process that removes that kind of manual need to do a task. So it's anything that could be a repetitive action, but you set it up based on predefined rules that then no longer requires that human input. So you take away that kind of element after the first initial human input to power and create that rule. It kind of automates the process thereafter. AI, on the other hand, it learns and evolves. So where automation is static, it just repeats the task over and over again, and it's all rule-based. Artificial intelligence, it learns and it evolves, and it makes decisions, and that decision can be changed based on an outcome as that data evolves. So AI is all about data, and it's all based on kind of data, and the decision changes as we go. Automation is rule-based, and it's all about repetition, and it doesn't evolve and it doesn't change. But they're both there, and they're both a means to help marketers to streamline kind of processes that we have. So there's a big fear amongst some marketers about automation and AI, a fear of job replacement. So does it make your job redundant? And the answer is no. There's always going to be kind of a place. It just means, and we'll look at kind of how this has evolved so far, it just means that the role is a little bit different, and you have to kind of develop and evolve with that. It's no different to kind of other changes that we've seen outside of automation and outside of AI that have come into kind of the world of digital marketing. But it's just more of a bigger step in a different direction, and it changes the, I suppose, the skill set that you need within the role as well. The other big fear is losing an element of control. So particularly with AI, I wouldn't say so much with automation. So automation, you still hold on to that control. You still power the rule that kind of gives that automation the guide of what to do. Whereas AI, there is an element of handing over the control. And what we'll look at later is how, whilst yes, you hand over the control to AI to do some of kind of the implementation, actually it's the information that you provide to that tool that gives you that element of control back. And you don't have to let go of all control. And then the final one that we come across quite frequently is being untrusting of the results. So there's a lot of kind of, if you're familiar with PPC, there's a campaign type called Performance Max. And that is essentially Google's height of AI and automation at the moment as it stands. And pretty much majority of that campaign is automated, and a lot of the data is hidden from us. So it's those elements of untrusting the results, because what we see is we don't know what's gone into that. So not only have we lost control, we're also not being able to see, you know, where these ads are delivering, who these ads are delivering to, and therefore we become untrusting of the results. But there are ways you can kind of break down into that, and we'll go into those as well. But overall, you know, it doesn't have to mean that you lose control of these things. It doesn't have to mean that your job is going to be redundant or you're going to get replaced by a robot. And if you can embrace and work with automation, it leaves you time to focus on less menial tasks, and put yourself into a position of kind of strategy and kind of feeding these machines. So overall, less control doesn't have to mean less power or lower performance. So what does automation and AI look like in PPC at the moment? So there's a few components of automation in PPC. It's used as a way to streamline processes, that can be from account setups to account management. And it does require a level of human input to get it working. But once you've got it set up, if you can map out the steps, then it can be automated, and thereon you don't have to kind of have any input into it. So the ones that we can kind of pull out, so you've got things like bidding. So you've got click-based bidding, like maximize clicks. You set the maximum bid limit, and you give Google the power to go ahead and essentially go and find as many clicks as it can within your budget. You can also bid based on impression share. So you're giving Google the target amount of impression share that you want to achieve, whether that's 80%, whether that's 70%, whether that's 90 or 100%. You give Google this target, and within your budget, it's going to go away and it's going to bid to achieve that impression share. So it's still target-based bidding for the likes of impression share, but you are still able to kind of cap that bid that you are going to pay. The other side you can use automation for is for optimization. So this could be performance-based, and that pairs with the next one, which is rules. And you can also use the likes of Google recommendations. So we're going to dip into Google recommendations in a little bit, but what I would say is always take these with a pinch of salt, but they are there and they can kind of influence and give you kind of inspiration and automate some of the menial tasks. Rules and scripts are probably two of the most important factors, I'd say, and most useful factors within automation. So the rules and scripts allow you that ultimate control, but it is about streamlining processes. So rules are particularly useful for budget changes, bid changes, and status changes. They allow you to make changes up to once per day. So you can make changes on a monthly, weekly, or daily basis, and you can set them to apply just once if you just wanted to do it one time. And you can set the conditions of the rules. So you map out the rules, you map out the steps. So it might be that for budget changes, for example, say you had a target return on ad spend, and if your campaigns were hitting that target return on ad spend, then you're happy for the budget to increase. So rather than you having to go in and increase that budget and check on a daily basis, you can set a rule to say, if my target return on ad spend was above 7, for example, then increase my budget by 10% or increase my budget by £20. And you can do the same for your bids as well. So you can have rule-based bid changes if you're on a manual cost per click bidding. And then also status changes. So status changes, personally, as kind of an agency, we find them particularly useful around kind of the holiday seasons. So as an agency, we close down over Christmas, and kind of rule-based status changes help us to schedule ads. If clients want ads to go on and off during those periods, you're able to set those status changes, and you can run reports and you can get emails sent if there's any kind of issue. So you do know if anything's gone wrong and you need to go in manually. Very rare that it does, but just in case. You can also set up alerts through rules to alert you, if your budget has hit a certain amount, or you can set up automated reports as well. And scripts, they work similar to rules. Scripts do require a little bit more kind of knowledge and input. So they are written in code. But the great thing about scripts is you don't have to be able to understand or write them. There are so many scripts out there that you can access and people have shared for free. There's a great community on LinkedIn where people are sharing scripts and kind of ideas and tips and tricks all of the time. It's become a very kind of open community. So there's so many scripts out there. Some I would say, you know, are more beneficial than others. But the scripts are all about either generating reports or making account changes. So whether that's adding in negatives, identifying new keywords, whether it's running a report. So we've got one, we utilize one that kind of breaks down max performance by the different networks that it comes on. So there's loads of different scripts, and scripts can run up to hourly. So you can set them, you know, daily, weekly, monthly again, but they can run up to hourly. So they're a bit more frequent if you need more frequent changes than a daily rule would allow. On the other side of this, we've got the components of AI. So AI's presence really in PPC has increased beyond expectations, potentially, over the last 2 years. And if you've not adapted to use it, then you are probably already a step behind your competitors. And AI in PPC falls into a couple of different categories again. So you've got the bidding side of it, and this falls into, rather than what we saw for the automation side, where it was just click-based bidding, this falls into now smart bidding. So this is about conversion and value bidding. And the conversion and value bidding, I've got a slide specifically on smart bidding, is all about pulling in more data signals than any human could ever kind of factor in for each and every ad auction. So smart bidding changes the bid and bids for every single ad auction, and adjusts that based on various different signals, whether it's what the user's searching for, whether it's where they're based, whether it's what they've searched for previously, what their intent is. All of these different signals come together and they adjust the bid at that very time. So the conversion-based bidding is Google looking to get you as many conversions as possible within your budget, and the value-based bidding is trying to get as much revenue within that budget. There's different things that you can do to still maintain a level of control, because what you can see with these bidding strategies sometimes is they'll bid excessively in terms of the cost per click because they think a conversion is likely, but it doesn't always result in a conversion. So there's little tips that I've got later on in this slide deck that just shows you how you can kind of control that as well. The other side of it is targeting, and targeting is probably one that we're most skeptical about letting go of. So this is things like your keywords and your audiences. So traditionally and historically, you know, we've had so much control over who we're targeting, how they're reached, and having a lot of say in, you know, who our ads are delivered to, whether that's through keywords, whether that's through kind of remarketing audiences or in-market audiences, to kind of reach different sets of users. We've always had control over this. And Google started to take the reins off of that and taken that a little bit back towards themselves. So the first step of that was changing how match types work. So match types in Google, if you're not familiar, decide how your keyword matches to what a user's searching for. So Google started to kind of open up how your keywords could match to a user's search term. And they go a step beyond that with the likes of Performance Max, where campaigns where you don't have to put any keywords in, they just do it based on the content of your website. So that kind of pulls in that element of the dynamic search ads, if you've used those previously. Dynamic search ads, essentially, again, you don't provide any keywords. Google looks at the content on the landing page that you provide, and it decides based on that content for each and every search, is your ad going to be relevant for this search? So it matches based on website content. So taking away that kind of targeting control, that is probably one of the scarier elements of kind of AI, because, you know, you lose that visibility and you lose that control of who your ads are appearing to. And, you know, it has in the past opened up, I suppose, not some errors in how kind of Google's matched, but it has become more kind of intelligent in how it does it. So there's a little bit more faith, but there is still a need for kind of exclusions to be put into place to kind of control how you're appearing if you are going to hand over to Google in terms of the targeting at this point. The other side is creative. So this comes down to ad variations. So Google has almost forced our hand in terms of allowing it some degree of control over our creative. So through the likes of responsive search ads now, Google determines which variation of that ad is going to show for each and every ad auction. So, and actually we've seen really good results from responsive search ads. So they are working well. But what you can do to, again, retain a little bit of control of that is you are able to pin your headlines. So you can control, and you can just submit 3 headlines. So you can control how your ad appears. So if you're using responsive search ads, you can use up to 15 headlines and they could appear in kind of any order. But if you start using pinned headlines, and if you start introducing ads with minimum assets submitted, so 3 headlines pinned in position 1, 2, and 3, and 2 descriptions pinned in position 1 and 2, then you can control exactly how that ad is appearing. And actually you can still take learnings from what part of that ad is working and what can you test in the next version of the ad. So you can still do ad testing and you can still retain that control through responsive search ads. And the final part of AI comes into kind of the optimization side of things, and this is through the likes of data signals. So all those signals that come into kind of the conversion and value bidding, and then also trends that Google is able to identify. So if you might have seen if you manage a Google Ads account, at certain times you might see kind of next to your budget and your bid, you might see a tiny little chart that pops up. If you hover over that, it might suggest for you to increase your budget based on a projected increase in search volume over the next 7 days, for example. So it takes into consideration trends that it can see forthcoming. So some pros and cons of automation and AI. So the biggest pro is it increases efficiencies. Particularly automation, where you can reduce those kind of menial tasks. It reduces the time that you have to spend on these tasks, and it gives you more time to focus on elements within your control. Another pro is it offers faster learning. So we do see that with the likes of the smart bidding, we do get to kind of learn and see results a lot faster. And also gives you an opportunity to improve results. Now, with this, you don't have to just all out, swap out, if you're using manual cost per click, manual bidding, you don't have to just swap it out. You can run it as an experiment, and we'd always recommend to run it as an experiment within the account. So you can test this and you can see if it improves the results. And if it doesn't, stick with what you've got or introduce a different test, an alternative test. And actually, probably another one of the biggest pros is it accounts for wider unseen factors that kind of humans just don't have visibility of. We can't be there each and every ad auction making adjustments to bids based on what a user has searched for previously or where they're based, or even with kind of bid adjustments for locations and time of day and day of week. We just can't have that ultimate kind of knowledge and visibility to help guide kind of those bids for each ad auction. On the flip side of this, there are a few cons. It does take away control, so you do lose that element of control, and that opens up to things like brand guidelines not being adhered to. So if you're a business with very strict brand guidelines, the likes of responsive search ads or responsive display ads, or using Performance Max and appearing for keywords that maybe you don't want to be appearing for, whether that's things like your competitor keywords, you might have agreements in place with your competitors that you just nobody competes on each other, then it starts to take out your controlling kind of those elements. And then also just on kind of short-term campaigns, they don't always perform as well, because it does take a little bit of time for kind of bidding strategies to learn, and the machines to kind of understand what works well and what doesn't work well, because it's testing all the time. So if you do have short campaigns, it's not always kind of in their interests to be smart or automated AI campaigns. So within Google as well, there are a number of tools that you can use to kind of support in kind of understanding and planning out how automation and AI may impact your results. So the first one is the Performance Planner. So this is for the search campaigns and Performance Max campaigns. And the performance planner allows you to map out what, essentially, if you had a certain budget, what would Google expect you to get back in terms of kind of revenue or conversions for that budget. So you can map out, what changes in budget would impact on your results, or vice versa. If you had a revenue target, Google would give you a budget that you should be using if you wanted to achieve that revenue target. They also have an optimization score. So the optimization score is one to take with a pinch of salt. So if any of you are managing Google Ads accounts, if you go into the recommendations tab, it will give you an optimization score. And if you've been through any of these recommendations, you'll know and you'll see that a lot of them are potentially in Google's interest. So things like, increase in budgets and increase in bids and things like that, or changing your keywords to broad match. They are in, they do appear to be in Google's interest to generate itself revenue. But it is worth bearing in mind that Google only succeeds if kind of you succeed as well. Because if you don't succeed, if your campaigns aren't working, then you're not going to invest more money in them. So it's swings and roundabouts, but I would say take them all with a pinch of salt. Don't just blindly apply them. Google isn't always right. It doesn't always have context to your business. So whilst the optimization score is just a guide, you don't have to apply all of the recommendations within there. You can dismiss them as well. So you can keep an eye on that, but it is Google's kind of guide of how well it thinks your account is being managed as well. But like I say, don't just blindly apply them, because there are some in there that just won't align to what your business objectives are. So keep that in mind. Another one we've got is portfolio bid strategies. So portfolio bid strategies are a way to merge your bidding across multiple campaigns. So when you set up a campaign, you apply a bid strategy to that campaign, and it's applied to that campaign individually. Portfolio bid strategies allow you to merge campaign bidding together. And there's a couple of benefits to that. So if you have relatively low conversion volumes, so say you had less than 30 conversions in each campaign, it's not really enough data to power Google's bidding strategies to be able to go out and kind of learn and understand who is likely to convert. Essentially, the more data that these bidding smart strategies have, so that the maximize conversions and the maximize conversion value, the more data that they have, the better that they perform. So by merging the campaign bid strategies together through portfolio bid strategies, Google's able to learn across those multiple campaigns, and suddenly where you might have had 15 conversions in each campaign, you might now have 50 conversions across that bid strategy. So it enables you to kind of merge data together and give Google a bigger pool of data. What I would say with that is making sure that the campaigns that you're kind of putting into the portfolio strategy, just making sure that they've all got the same objective. So for example, you wouldn't want to put, if you're running your own brand keywords, so if you're bidding on your own brand name, you wouldn't want to put that campaign in the same bid strategy as bidding on general terms around your business. So just making sure that they have the same objective. And the other benefit of a portfolio bid strategy is if you're using target cost per acquisition bidding, or target CPA, and target ROAS bidding, so target return on ad spend bidding, whereas in the individual campaigns, if you use these strategies, you can't put a maximum cost per click bid limit on. If you use a portfolio bid strategy, you can cap the maximum amount you're willing to pay per click. So it's just another benefit through portfolio bid strategies. And you can apply just one campaign in a bid strategy if you wanted that control over capping that maximum cost per click. Another one that you can use is seasonal bid adjustments. So seasonal bid adjustments allow you to essentially adjust, tell Google that you're anticipating a change in performance over up to a 7-day period. So this is particularly useful at the likes of, say, like around kind of Black Friday or around Christmas. So during Black Friday, we know that the conversion rate or the return on ad spend is likely to increase. So if we tell Google this, it just means that Google can feed this back into the bidding strategies, and it won't kick those bidding strategies back into learning. Whereas if suddenly you had a really big spike in conversion rate, actually what will happen is it will confuse the bidding strategy. So if you're using any of the smart strategies like maximize conversions or maximize conversion value, it can confuse these strategies if there's sudden and big changes in your data. So by alerting Google that you're expecting these changes, then it can help to kind of mitigate that change in kind of that learning process. And then the final one is data exclusions. So this is another one that again helps prevent kicking your bidding strategies into learning mode, or helps them to discount data that might be inaccurate. So for example, if you happen to have any kind of tracking issues where either tracking was dropped out, your tracking broke, or you over-reported for some reason, you can tell Google to exclude that data from kind of essentially from your bidding strategies. So the smart bidding strategies wouldn't learn from that period of time. And again, it just means it's not learning off of false data, and it's not kicking that strategy back into a learning phase. So when it comes to embracing smart bidding, I would say if you are a smart bidding skeptic, you are a little bit at risk at getting left behind. There are great benefits to smart bidding. There is a time and a place. It doesn't work for everybody. And that's why we'd always say, test, use experiments, test different strategies against, if you're using manual CPC, use an experiment, test it in that kind of controlled environment, and see what the results are. Because it's in an experiment, it's not going to impact your original campaign. And traditionally we would split an experiment 50-50, but if you were really cautious, you could split it 80-20 or 70-30 if you wanted to be a little bit more cautious with that. But what I would say, whether it's a Google's algorithm, so whether it's maximize conversions, maximize conversion value, or whether it's a third-party tool, if you aren't doing either, then you're probably missing opportunities and you're probably wasting some spend. And the reason being is smart bidding happens at auction. So where for manual cost per click, we set bids ahead of time, and at most you might change them on a daily basis. You probably don't even do that, and you might have bid adjustments in place for time of day, whether it's an audience list, a location, or a device. But actually what Google does with its signals is it gets them at each and every ad auction. So like I say, whether it's the browser that they're using, whether it's the search query, whether it's the language, whether it's looking at the ad creative that it's going to pair with it, looking at the search intent history. There's so many factors that come into play for Google Smart Bidding that we just can't see. And third-party tools can help with this as well if you don't want to kind of rely on Google. There are tools out there as well that can do this. So some smart bidding best practices. So like I say, using portfolio bid strategies alongside smart bidding enables you to set the maximum cost per click bid limits. And that just enables you to control what the bid is, what the end bid ends up being. So sometimes what you can see is if you looked at your search terms report, you might see that if you've got automated bidding on and you've got a smart bidding strategy on, that you're paying £7 per click because Google thought a conversion was going to happen. That conversion might not have happened, and actually you might not be able to afford to pay £7 per click. So it just enables you to set those big caps to make sure that Google's bidding within kind of the scope that you want it to. It learns from multiple campaigns, but just ensure that the campaign goals are aligned to the same strategy. When it comes to smart bidding, so the likes of target ROAS or target cost per acquisition, targets do matter. So make sure that the targets you set are achievable. Otherwise, you risk hindering the bidding strategy. So if you're currently achieving a 3 ROAS and you go in and you set your target to 8 because 8 is what you need to get, is what you want to get, that's going to choke the campaign. It just means that your campaign is not going to deliver effectively because Google just can't hit that target straight off the bat. But actually, what you should do if you've already got results, so if your campaign's already been running, keep the targets to roughly within 10% of your current results, and then you gradually adjust and gradually get to that point where you want to actually be. So it's about kind of little increases till you kind of get there. And it might be that you get there quicker, and Google might be able to kind of learn and achieve. It really depends on the amount of data, but just making those incremental changes as you go. And that leads into making sure that you pace your changes. So to reduce the need for learning periods, always kind of try and make smaller incremental changes. So with the smart strategies, what happens is if you make a really big change, so if you went from targeting a £20 CPA to a £10 CPA, so it's a 50% change, then it kicks Google's back into learning, because it doesn't know at this point how to achieve that result. It has to go away and it has to learn again. Whereas previously it knew how to achieve potentially that £20 CPA, so it kicks it back into a learning period. And by making smaller changes, by taking it down by 10%, for example, it allows the system time to kind of learn and kind of adapt as it goes. And then if you are making changes, always allow the system time to learn before you make further changes. So don't just change it one day, expect the world the next day. It doesn't always happen like that. And the most important thing for any smart bidding, and really just any account outside of automated bidding and AI, is accurate tracking. So ensure that your conversion tracking is set up accurately, and ensure you're measuring the right conversion points. The more data that you can give and the better data that you can give to Google, the more you're going to get back out of it. So I'm going to go in a little bit later of additional tracking mechanisms that you can give it. So how do you know what's good from the bad? There are still elements that you might want to avoid, and what is right for one account is not always right for another. So where previously in PPC management, actually there were some general best practices, there were some things that you could follow that would always work no matter what account you applied them to. It's not always the case now, so it's not a one size fits all anymore. But there are some elements I would avoid and steer away from, essentially. Excuse me. And they pretty much fall into Google's auto apply recommendations. So to disable these, if you go into recommendations, on the top right, you'll see a notch that says auto apply, and then in manage, you'll get this little screen below, and you can basically select under maintain your ads and grow your business. There's between 24 recommendations that Google can auto apply to your account. The ones that I would absolutely definitely turn off is auto apply for ad creative. So allowing Google to create new ads variations for you, particularly and especially if you have very strict brand guidelines, because it can go against these. Auto apply recommendations for removing or pausing keywords. Google's just expanded the reach of this recommendation. So not only will it just pause keywords, it will start removing keywords where basically it will see that the keyword could be picked up elsewhere within your account. So it could start removing keywords and pausing keywords where you're actually getting data from. So I'd always turn this off. And then auto reply, turn it off for adding new keywords. Same again, it might start targeting keywords that you just don't want to target, and it might start adding keywords in on broad match, for example. So I'd always turn those three off. As a rule, I turn them all off. And it doesn't mean that it won't still recommend them, but it just means that you'll be able to manually go in and apply the ones that you think are relevant. So it will still give you new keyword suggestions. It will still give you suggestions for keywords to pause or remove. And it will still give you suggestions for new variations of ad creative. It just means that it won't auto apply them. You'll be able to go in and select which ones to do. But overall, just avoid anything that may compromise or go against your marketing strategy or your brand. And the three above, they're kind of the most common. But yeah, I turn it all off and just manually review the recommendations. So we've touched on these pretty much already, but just to summarize, there's two campaign types really within Google Ads that are automated. Dynamic search ads, or DSA, they've been around for many, many years, for as long as I've been doing PPC. So automation's been around for a long time. So dynamic search ads, as I mentioned, there's no keywords, and it matches users' searches based on kind of website on your content on your website. So with this one, it's really important that the content on your website is up to scratch, it's relevant, and it's accurate and reflective of what you're offering as a business. With dynamic search ads, Google automates the ad creation and the landing page selection. In terms of your input, you set the budget and you set the bidding model. You've also got Performance Max campaigns. So the Performance Max automates and reaches multiple parts of the marketing funnel. So it can go across search, it can go across shopping, it can go across display, and it can go across YouTube. So it covers multiple parts of the marketing funnel, whether it's awareness, whether it's conversion, and everything kind of consideration in between. So you feed the campaign the information. So that's the your website URLs, it's the product feed if you're an e-commerce business, the audience signals. So audience signals are quite an important one for Performance Max. So the audience signals enable you to give Google a bit of a helping guide at the start of the campaign setup. So you can say, these are the types of audience that work well for me. These are the types of audience I want to reach. And Google goes away and it looks at that signal and it tries to find people that kind of fit within that as well. And you give Google the assets. So whether that's the imagery, video, or headlines and descriptions, you're able to still refine and optimize the campaign. So whilst you can't physically add negative keywords into the campaign yourself, you can use a Google rep and go through the Google help function to add negative keyword lists. Once the negative keyword list has been added to the campaign, you're able then to just go in yourself without going back through a rep to add additional keywords into that list. And then you set the budget and you choose the smart bidding model. So you still have some degree of control in both of the campaigns. It's just limited and different to kind of your standard campaign management. Deciding what to automate, it really comes down to how time consuming is a task for you to complete and how frequently do you have to complete it. So things that are frequent and timely, it's probably worthwhile having a look at how you can automate these. And then also leading in from that is what automations will drive you the most value. So if something is quick to do and it's relatively infrequent, is it worth automating? Maybe, maybe not. It really depends, what value is it going to drive? So things like budget changes, if you can automate them based on set criteria, that might add value because they can happen quickly and they can happen at the time that, it's important for those changes to happen before you lose kind of any visibility or potential conversions. So Google can make those changes at the point the kind of rule is met. So it just comes down to how time consuming, how frequently, and what will drive the most value. But pretty much most things can be automated to some degree. So how can you add value to the automation? So when it comes to automation and AI, think of them as collaborators to your role rather than competitors. And this will help you kind of move forward with and embrace automation. So it's a bit of a shift in the way that we work. So there's going to be a change in how we build campaign structures. We're already sitting less granularity, performs better. So SCAGs are out. So SCAGs were single key phrase ad groups. The structures used to be very, very granular. So you'd have one keyword in every ad group and you'd have really massive structures and loads of ad groups, loads and loads of campaigns. Well, Google is winding this back. It's suggesting more consolidated structures. What I would say from experience is having consolidated some structures, they do seem to perform a little bit better. So it's worth testing. Don't just completely go in and overwrite your structures if everything's working fine. But test and experiment and explore what works for each of your accounts. The targeting capabilities and how we target, they're changing. So with the introduction or the expansion, should I say, of Performance Max campaigns, how we target and how we decide who to target, that's changing. So it's becoming more based on kind of your website content. The keyword match types, they've already changed, but are they going to change further? I would imagine so. Google is pushing more and more to kind of a broad first match type. And as a result of all of this, our management styles are going to have to change as well. But there's still a lot of contribution and collaboration that you can make. So from content and creative to messaging, you're always going to have to budget plan. Tracking is always going to need to be set up. It's always going to need to be fed back in. Your source data is going to become really important. So things like, well, it's already important, but even more so, things like your product feed, and also making sure kind of exclusions are in place. So this brings into kind of the new era of PPC management. So the PPC manager role is going to have to evolve. It's been evolving for the 8 years that I've been kind of in Google management, and it's going to continue to evolve further. It just means that actually now it's about thinking, more creatively and challenging Google's decision making, because Google can't contextualize your business, but you can. So I would see it split into kind of two elements: the PPC controller. Automation and AI, it's smart, but it's not above errors, and it doesn't know your business as well as you do. So it can't understand your brand. So the PPC controller is all about setting up monitoring systems. So set up alerts for changes in kind of bids, budgets, tweaks in performance. So whether your CTR, click-through rate, or your conversion rate is going up and down, spiking, set up alerts, and you can react quickly and you can adjust the system. It's also going to be your job to prevent bad actions from automation, making sure that the actions taken are in the interest of the account and they're not against what you would want. You can, again, falling into that is working as a bit of a stopgate to QC the automation and the AI. So again, that falls into kind of preventing those bad actions. Ensuring the context of your business is upheld, and ensuring the core data aligns to the business. So making sure that what Google is trying to achieve is aligned to the targets that you're trying to kind of achieve as well. So giving Google kind of the targets in the first place, and then ensuring that the branding is upheld. Whereas the PPC pilot is all about that kind of guidance, and actually rather than managing the complexities in Google around kind of bidding and kind of those menial tasks, it's all about informing Google better about kind of our businesses. So the structure is going to be important. So how do you structure your campaigns? How do you structure your account? Providing the base information, so your website, your ads, your product feed, and teaching and guiding the machine. So whether that's through the data that you provide it, whether that's through tweaks, through kind of optimization. So you might have one target and you might gradually kind of adjust that target. Through experiments and testing. So like I say, even with responsive search ads, where kind of Google has kind of forced these upon us, it's the only kind of search ad option. You still have the option to kind of implement tests within them, and you can still kind of, by implementing those tests, see what is performing in terms of your ad messaging. You'll be responsible for the strategy, and then one of the most important elements, as always, is going to be the tracking. So with the PPC pilots, the account structure, it's going to be organization and objectives based on your keywords, your audiences, and your products. The creative assets is all about the imagery, the video, the messaging, what landing pages, what website pages can you kind of give? Is it the homepage? Do you need to build custom pages? And also feeding this back into how you manage your kind of SEO and your organic side of things as well, because it all ties together nicely. Your structured data is all about your product feeds, feeding it first-party data, so customer emails, offline conversions, and post-conversion data. So a lot of the time what will happen is we track conversions within the account, particularly for lead generation, and you might track those conversions, and that's fine. We see the point up to the lead happens, but that lead actually for your business, yes, it's valuable, but what actually means something to your business is whether that lead turns into a sale. So if you can feed that sale data back into Google, you can start to say, actually, these leads that ended in a sale are the most valuable. And that gives Google more data to go out and find conversions similar to those ones that ended up in a sale rather than just any lead. So it's all about giving Google as much information as possible. And then also determining the optimum targets. So it's all about, giving you more time for analysis so you can strategize and you can pivot based on kind of the live data in the account. And this is just to kind of summarize. So Google will, it's already started to handle which networks your ads appear on, what the bids are, which advert version appears, which devices, which audiences, the scheduling, and which searches. but you feed in on the outside of this. So the account setup, so how to structure, which targets, what exclusions do you put into place, and what conversions are you going to track? Feeding it in first-party data from your customer databases, your offline conversions, and your post-conversion data, and optimizing the creative elements or your assets from your product feed, your landing pages, that conversion funnel, and also the ad components for Google to decide which ad version does show. So the conversion tracking is, like I said, the most crucial element to smart bidding. So it's everything that powers the smart bidding elements. And as I say, for B2B, we track that initial lead, or we track that initial trial signups, but we don't always pass offline information back in. Or for e-commerce, you might track revenue, but you don't always account for profit within that. So as we move forward, it's about teaching Google what valuable looks like. So not every conversion is worth the same. So it's becoming more and more crucial to track that full sales process. And it really is about, as a business, what really matters most is, are those leads turning into sales? Is that revenue turning into profit? So what we can do is we can loop that sales data back into the Google Ads account, and that can start to power the smart bidding in a more advanced way. For your creative assets, for the website and for your ads, you need to focus on testing, improving, and optimizing. And this works, is crucial for PPC, but it also benefits your SEO, it benefits content, it benefits UX. So it's more about kind of that integrated approach and how each channel can support the other. So for the website, looking at your navigation, your usability, your site speed, what content have you got on there? And particularly, as we move into that era of not necessarily having keywords in all of our campaigns, the content on the website is crucial to Google determining which searches you're going to match to. So making sure, it's relevant, it's accurate, and it's up to date. What calls to action have you got on your website, and what is your offer, and how does that compare to kind of your competition? And then from the ads, again, what is the messaging? What is the call to action? What imagery are you using? What videography are you using? So all of this is how you can kind of feed into Google's machine. From the product feed perspective, this is kind of how, for a shopping ad, Google determines, how it's going to match your searches. So it's crucial that you're providing, accurate and full data on each kind of product. So for the required fields, you can be enhancing titles and descriptions. So whether that's adding in key searches, so what are users searching for when they try and find your products, and key attributes. So whether it's color, whether it's size, anything like that, what attributes can you add into your titles, and how can you enhance and embellish your descriptions, and always ensuring kind of accuracy. So what we've seen in the past is, for example, you might name a product on your website, particularly if it's kind of a custom website or custom products. You might name a product something that's a really nice name, and it means something to you and it means something to your brand, but it might not necessarily mean anything to anybody that's searching. So it's important to have, exactly what the product is. If it's a planter, if it's a bench, if it's a door, whatever the product is, making sure it has the what the product is within the title as well, because we've seen it before where it just doesn't. It just has kind of the fancy name that's been attributed by the brand. And then you've also got your recommended fields. So whilst they're recommended for most, for attributes for things like apparel, they are kind of required. But in any case, whatever product you're selling, if you can provide more and more data into these attribute fields, such as color, such as size, such as weight, and things like that, the more data that you can give to Google, the more information it has to go away and find searches that are relevant to your products. So give as much full product data as you possibly can, and then also use custom labels to provide supplementary data. So this might be things like profit margins, and then you can use these to structure your campaigns as you go. Your first party data, this is things like emails. So whether that is your customer database, it could be users that have signed up to your newsletter, anything like that. Feed this information back into Google. Obviously making sure that you've got kind of permissions from a GDPR perspective to do so, but you can upload these email databases into Google, and you can do different things with them. You can use it to guide Google's kind of decision making, so you can push them into things like the Performance Max campaigns. You could target them specifically if you wanted to do kind of retention-based campaigns or any kind of remarketing campaigns, or you can use them for exclusions. So if they're already customers, you might not want to show the same ads to these customers as you would to kind of new users. So you can use them in very different ways. You can feed back in your sales, revenue, and profit data, again, to give more kind of information on actually your ads are performing this. This is what your return on ad spend is, but actually when you take the profit into consideration, this is what things look like. So you can start to feed that information back into Google as well. But overall, test, analyze, and test again. So new features are releasing kind of all the time. Embrace them, test them, experiment with them. And one of the key things I've learned kind of over the time is if it doesn't work once, it doesn't mean that it won't ever work, because with automation and AI and paid media, it evolves and it gets better over time. When smart bidding first came out, it was pretty useless. It didn't work that well. It needed so much data to power it, but over time it's got better and better. And actually now it works really well for most accounts, not all accounts, which is why I'd say test and experiment, but it does deliver really good results. So, if it doesn't work the first time, circle back in 6 months, in 12 months, see what updates have been made, read up on, other use cases, check in with people on kind of LinkedIn, on different blogs and resources, and test again, and, learn from other people's mistakes as well. Because as I say, there's a very, very open community on LinkedIn around these things. So in terms of the evolving landscape, it's ever evolving, it's ever changing. Some of the most recent changes, is the rollout and updates of Performance Max campaigns, Google's push towards auto apply recommendations and how it's kind of adapting those. And also, as I'm sure you're all aware if you all joined Anne's talk, ChatGPT is probably going to bring, or it is bringing, a new element and a new angle to PPC as well. Whilst it is, content based, it can develop, keyword plans. It can develop keywords, campaign structures and campaign plans and marketing plans, and write ad copy as well. So, and we've got James. He's working on James Annika. He's working on a version to write product descriptions, which is in theory for a SEO perspective and a content perspective, but things like that, that obviously, if you're an e-commerce business, is pulling into your product feed if you're running shopping ads as well. So there's so much, that it might change and adapt and again, make things more efficient. But it's all about learning how you can work alongside these things. So key takeaways, if you're new to automation, where to start? The first one, I'd say the easiest one is starting with automated rules. They're simple logic based, so there's limited kind of room for error, if you like. So it could be, if your return on ad spend is greater than 10 and clicks are more than 100, then increase the bid by 10%, because we know this keyword or this product is performing well. Or some logic-based budget rules. So again, if the return on ad spend is greater than 10, increase the budget. If it's limited by budget, bidding strategies. As I say, run them as an experiment A/B test and review the results. You might be pleasantly surprised. And then campaign types as kind of a dip in the toe, and you might already be using them without even considering that they're automation. But things like dynamic search ads. If you are going to use them, though, just make sure your website content is up to scratch on that front. And then finally, key takeaways, automation and AI, it is the future and it is going to be here to stay. It works best when guided by human input. Embrace automation, but don't just blindly follow Google's recommendations. They don't know your business. They don't have all the context. So disable auto-apply recommendations. And ensure you continue to understand, what are the building blocks of PPC. And that's important because it enables you to know what's powering the automation and also to retain the ability to identify when things aren't as they should be. if you are using automation and AI, keep a close eye on your data, and don't treat all campaigns and clients the same, and learn what works for each individually. And that is it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Well done, Holly. I think there's been such positive feedback already. Just with that in mind, I'm going to, because it's getting closer to 10, I'm just sliding out, putting the reviews out there, because there is an internal competition, and Holly is, after a few reviews there. Have been a few questions. So just generally, someone said, do you think automation levels the playing field with competitors if they have a massive PPC budget, as long as we have good keywords, ad copy and landing pages?
To some degree it can. So it really depends what bidding strategies your competitors are using. So it can help you to, I'd say with like smart bidding strategies, for example, it can help you to utilize your budget in more efficient ways. So if you have got a limited budget, Google will be able to direct that budget into searches that are more likely to get you a conversion or a sale. So it can help in that element. It will come down to, essentially with smart bidding, you all end up bidding the same. Whether you're bidding manually or you're bidding smart, you end up paying, the end bid works the same. So you'll never pay more than 1 pence more than what it takes to outbid your competitor. So, and that all comes down to your ad rank, and your ad rank is based on, firstly, your bid, but then also your quality, and your quality score comes down to how relevant your ad is, and how relevant your landing page is. So ads and landing page, if you've got really good content, if you've got really well-written ads that are kind of relevant to a user search, then it kind of levels the playing field, but manually you can still achieve it as well.
Nazir said, can you please provide me with the names of the LinkedIn groups where they share some tricks and tips, as Holly mentioned? So I thought it would be easier just for you to list them off quickly.
Yeah, so it's more, I follow more people. So the one I follow mostly, actually, he gives some really good tips. He's a guy called Miles McNair. He gives some really good tips. That's the one I follow mostly, and he sends out a weekly newsletter as well with tips and tricks. He's got a little community, and on his he's got it's a PPC mastery community, and it's a community. It's a chat community he's set up. You can join that. It's free to join the community, and it's just basically people just back and forth with ideas and recommendations that they've tested. He's the main one, though.
Okay. Another quick question. How do we see the visibility of ad networks used in Performance Max campaigns? Actually, we're covering PMax next week. Jim, we're in the right place. I was about to announce that. So yeah, Holly, go on.
There is a script. There is a script that you can use. Again, if you go onto Miles's, it was him that shared it, actually. There's a script that you can use that breaks it down. In the platform, you can't see it. You would need a script to put in to be able to see that.
Okay, and someone said, are you able to show us an example of the process using an Annika ad? Well, Holly will be doing future webinars, and I will apply that feedback to everybody moving forward. So taking that on board, Paul, probably can't do that as such now. And then everyone's just saying thank you. So just so you're aware, we've got Jordan next week talking about how to set up PMax campaign. Sorry, definitely a Friday. Just to get the most information out of them. So I'm really looking forward to that one as well. So I think that's it really. I've tried to cover as many questions as I can. I've been getting a lot of feedback, Holly, saying that there's so much information here, like you could even run a mini series, and maybe that's something we can take forward in the podcast down the line. I think you've done amazing, and just so you know, Holly hasn't been feeling too well today, and I'm just blown away with what she's just done, to be honest. And even for me, I've been in marketing like 20 years, and I'm just like, I think certain facets of that I need to go back and just watch again. So we will like be giving you, the catch-up video. So we'll be releasing that in the next like hour or two. So keep an eye out for that, because I know who was it? Someone came in at the end and said, "Oh, I've just been at." It was Stuart. I've been at a breakfast networking meeting, so I've only caught the latter half. So you're in safe hands. We've covered all bases. So yeah, I think that's everything, to be honest. Not too bad. 5 minutes over. Is there anything else you want to say, Holly, or anything?
No, thank you everyone for joining. I think I did just see one question from.
Okay, sorry if I missed that.
I don't know if Martin's still here. Just on how you feed the data, sales data back into Google. So it depends on the platform that you're using. So Salesforce, for example, has a direct integration. So if you're using Salesforce, you can do that. Otherwise, some of the other platforms do have APIs that you can set up. Otherwise, it's an offline export. So you'd feed it into Google Sheets and then you'd feed it back in to Google Ads. So it depends on the platforms that you're using on how you get that data back in.
Well, thanks everyone. It's such positive feedback. Really appreciate it. And if you do get like a minute just to give Holly a review, you'll be our friends forever. Holly's email address is there if I've missed anything. I have tried to reply, Q&A as best as I can as well in the background. So yeah, hope you all have a lovely weekend, a lovely Friday. Be seeing you next week. Can't wait to see what Jordan's got to say. I'm sure he might be around actually in the background. He normally is. So yeah, I think that's it.
Great. Thank you for joining
us. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to stop the recording now. See you next week. And if we've got half term next week, I hope it goes well. It's been this week for me. So yeah. Okay. Bye. Bye, Stuart. Bye. Good to see you here. Bye, Paul. Bye, Alice. Lovely to see you all. Okay. Bye. Bye.